On behalf of the Jewish home, we're preparing a delicious brisket for Passover, as well as some sides. So without further ado, we're going to turn it over to Seth and his chef.
How are you guys doing? This is Seth and Chef James, partners here at Central New Jersey Chefs for Seniors. We are an in-home personal chef service. We come in usually once a week or once every 2 weeks and prepare you usually enough meals until the next time I see you, somewhere between 10 and 12. And today we're going to prepare a brisket with fennel and herbs. We're also going to do some stuffed mushrooms and some zucchini boats. Is that right?
Right.
All right. Sounds fun. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn the camera around and we are going to get started. All right. And just to give you an update, so obviously it's impossible to cook a full brisket in 40 minutes. So what we've done is we've got a prepared brisket all ready for us at the end, which we'll show you. And we're going to walk through the steps of the recipe as well as how to prepare your zucchini boats.
What we're going to start with today is we're going to start with the vegetables because we're actually going to cook the vegetables in real time. I'm going to preheat the oven, 350, and the stuffing is very simple, and it's a vegetable or vegetarian stuffing. Simply remove the stems from the mushrooms. Obviously, I have prepared some ahead of time. You just fine dice the stems.
Any preference with mushrooms, Chef?
Not really.
No?
These are baby bellies. They have a little more woody flavor. You could use button mushrooms. Button mushrooms tend to, except for around the holidays, they're a little small.
Mm-hmm.
And mushrooms are 90% water, so they'll shrink. So those real small button mushrooms, usually around Thanksgiving, holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, you'll find big stuffing mushrooms, white mushrooms. But in this case, what I picked up was some baby bellies.
You got it.
Now, for the stuffing, we're going to do a fine dice. Like I said, there's a fine dice on the stems, a fine dice of onion.
Any special preference with onion? We're just using regular white.
Yeah,
right?
we're using Spanish onions today. And a fine dice. Now, mind you, this is going to become a stuffing into mushrooms, so you don't want big chunks. We're going to do a very fine dice on the bell pepper also.
And so these things combined are really what's going to become our stuffing.
This is the stuffing. It's as simple as that. This will be sauteed. This will be sauteed in some canola oil, little salt and pepper. You could add chili flakes if that's your preference. And the mushroom stems will give off some liquid, and you want that. You want the stuffing to be moist. At the probably 5-7 minutes sauteing. At the end of that, shut the heat off. And you want to hit it with some breadcrumb or some matzo meal.
Mm-hmm.
You could use some Italian seasonings if you like, whatever your preference is, right there. The stuffing would look like this.
So about 7 minutes of roasting down our onions.
Just sauteing.
Sauteing
right,
it down.
Heat.
Okay, we're going to see some liquid in the plate,
right,
just from the mushrooms.
And when you introduce the breadcrumbs or matzo meal, whatever you're going to use, that'll absorb that flavor that it gave off. Now, the base stuffing is the same for the zucchini boats and the mushrooms. However, after I made the stuffing, I split it. And in the zucchini boat stuffing, I also added some wonderful cherry tomatoes. We have some heirloom cherry tomatoes that are readily available now in ShopRite and all grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
So I just quartered these and put those into the zucchini stuffing.
That's fantastic. So
right
multi-use for our stuffings.
This was the mushroom stuffing. Real simple. Don't overstuff it because it will shrink.
So we're filling them up to the top.
Just don't overstuff it. Don't try to pack it in because the mushrooms will shrink and you'll have the stuffing all over the pan.
So the mushrooms that we're pulling the stems out of, we're reusing obviously to pack our mushrooms.
There they are.
So these are a full tray of prepared mushrooms ready for Passover dinner, ready for the
that was a 12 or 16 ounce package of mushrooms.
Okay. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So we've got our tray ready. It's going to be in, those are going to be ready for the oven, right?
You're right. That oven will be preheated in a couple of seconds. Now, the zucchinis, you see this one I've already hollowed.
So how,
Here's one
the
we're
method?
gonna hollow, real simple. A teaspoon right under the seeds.
So we're using a spoon.
Just a teaspoon and hollow it out right there.
You could obviously, reuse the ends, the stuff you're craving out for a
Yeah.
mash or.
You could, but there are a lot of seeds in here. I'm leaving a lot of the meat
Mhm.
in the mushroom, in the zucchini, excuse me.
You got it. So we're creating our boat from the shell. Nice shelling it out.
Those tomatoes are gonna add a nice sweetness
Mm.
to the stuffing.
So what do we use in this? We used breadcrumbs, correct?
Yes, I used a mixture of seasoned Italian breadcrumbs
Mhm.
along with some panko to give it a little extra crunch.
Nice.
And actually healthy panko. It was whole wheat panko.
Right. Are there gluten-free options for being able to do this? Are there?
I'm sure.
Right. There's a gluten-free breadcrumb
Yeah,
option that we can do
there's-
for that as well.
And as
It-
opposed to a bread crumb, is there something else for Passover?
Yeah, you can use matzo meal.
Yeah, matzah. You could use matzah and just season it up with whatever seasonings you prefer. You could put basil, parsley, a dry Italian seasoning.
It's really anything to help kind of get that moisture from the mushrooms, pull it all together. Looks good. So we've got our 2 trays of our veggies that are going to be ready for the oven. And what did we preheated our oven to again? It was 350.
We're gonna cover these to begin with, and then the last couple of minutes, we'll remove the foil. The vegetables will then, the stuffing will dry up because the mushrooms are gonna give off,
More moisture.
moisture.
Especially the big mushrooms. You may even see some moisture in the bottom of the tray that will get evaporated once we start pulling that off.
How clean is that oven? And it's got a lot of mileage on it.
Especially doing cooking shows here. So what do we have still on the over here? What are all this nice, good-looking stuff that we've got left on the table?
When we finish the brisket, we're going to finish the brisket with an herb salad, just with a little lemon juice. We have cilantro, mint, and Italian parsley.
Mm.
Now we can move on to our brisket. In the interest of time, as said, we already prepared the full brisket because obviously this brisket, even though we're only using a 1.5 pound brisket, still took 2 hours in the oven.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
what we did first was salt and pepper the brisket and brown the brisket in a nice heavy cast iron Dutch oven. You want to brown the brisket first, the fat side down first, for about 8 to 10 minutes. Turn it over, brown the second side. Remove the brisket, let it sit on a plate, and save those juices that it's given off. That's going to get poured back in.
right, this is the juices in the pan there.
All right, the first thing we're going to do is quarter. It depends on how big the onion is. You want to leave the root end on because we're going to put wedges in.
Mm.
So you want to cut through the root and instead of quartering it, this is a larger onion, so I'll cut it into 6. we're gonna do the same thing with the fennel, but we want to cook the onion first because we want to get that flavor. We want to get those natural sugars out of the onion, which will be the base of the braising liquid.
Just a quick shout out to Sarah Cohn and the Jewish Rehab Center. We really appreciate the invite today.
Right now, this is all flavor in the bottom of this pot right here.
And so these are the juices that came out from the brisket from the braising process.
From browning brisket. You just get that pot up to a little heat. Then what we're going to do is we want to brown these onions a bit, pick up some of those flavors, let the onions give off their natural sugars.
Sweetens them up a bit too here.
Absolutely. This is our fennel, or as we Italians like to call it, fenocchio. And don't waste these.
No.
You could use that on salmon.
Yep.
Just like you would use dill.
Roast it right into the salmon. Yep.
Same thing with the fennel. We're gonna clean that root end, but we're gonna keep the root end on because we're gonna put it in. We'll do 6 on this too.
So this is the part where everybody on Zoom is going to wish that they had smell-o-vision.
Oh, absolutely.
We're working on inventing that. Sarah's working on that as well, guys.
Okay. We're gonna use a nice bunch of thyme when we braise it. We're also going to use some celery. I'm going to cut the celery into about 2-inch pieces. You don't want to cut it too small because this is going to be in a liquid. Like I said, the piece we finished this morning was a good 2 hours, hour 45, 2 hours. Now, you could use the same exact recipe if you're having family and you're going to get a bigger piece of brisket, a 4-pound piece of brisket, same exact recipe. You may want to add 2 onions. You may want to add a little more fennel, your preference. You definitely want to add a couple more celery stalks.
And you want them big, right? Because we're cooking, I mean,
Yes.
especially for a 4 or 5 pound roast, you're going to be in there for
4 or 5 pound roast is going to be a minimum of 3 hours. At 3 hours, I would suggest you check it. Use a knife. Make sure you saw how that's shredded before. You'll know right away. Just stick it with a knife, and you'll see it starting to get to that point of it's falling apart.
It's just falling apart. And we're going to show you guys the falling apart yumminess right afterwards. So we've got the fennel or the onions cooking down right now in the pot, right? Got the onion preheating, waiting for our zucchini boats and our mushrooms.
We're good.
Oh, we're in.
Yeah.
All right, great. You're even a step ahead of me here.
Right.
All right.
Got that over here.
So, something like this is, listen, we're not putting on live cooking shows for all of our clients, but, someone like Chef James is exactly who would be coming into the home of our chefs to help prepare some delicious meals and even have them kind of sit and relax and watch Chef James cook and smell some of these delicious smells that we're cooking here. We do end up at the end kind of putting everything into little Tupperwares so that we can easily stack them in the fridge and make the reheating process as easy as possible. But if you're hungry right now, while we're at your house, you can sit at the counter and we'll serve you right there at dinner at the counter table or at the dinner table with a nice plate and really make the experience as nice as possible for you. I mean, we're here to serve you. So let's get an update.
We're looking good here.
All right, so the juices from the original brisket mixed with some onions, getting cooked down.
You want to see those onions starting to take on a little of that
That
flavor.
Mm-hmm. You can see them absorbing that the sauce. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh
That's
yeah.
all I could say.
Smell-o-vision coming to
I
you.
can smell it from here.
Yep. See, I told you. Sarah's working on that technology. She's always
There
ahead.
we go. Those onions are taking on. Those onions are taking on nice color. So now we'll start introducing the rest of our vegetables. Our fennel. And fennel, really, when fennel's cooked, I know it has a very licorice-like taste
Mm-hmm.
when you eat it raw, and it's a very good digestive.
Helps with. Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Every holiday in an Italian household, fennel comes on the table after the meal with nuts and fruit.
Yeah, to help.
Right, it's a great digestive. Well, like I said, we call it fennel.
Oh, these are great tips. This is Nutrition Month, so
Yeah. That's good. Now, we're also going to put a head of garlic in there.
mm-hmm.
We're not peeling it, anything. What we're simply going to do, just clean a little bit of that root. And it's really doesn't make too much of a difference because the liquid is going to be strained. We're just going to have this whole head of garlic.
Wow.
There you go. Now our brisket, this time fat side up.
So my question is, how often and when do you start tasting?
We
Because
are.
every chef should taste their food, right?
We tasted it already.
Yeah, every chef.
We have to. We're very high on quality control.
Yeah, we're gonna be tasting it here in a bit, but I'm very excited. I haven't eaten breakfast or lunch, so this is going to be hitting all those spots for me. So sounds
Now-
good. Yep.
Now the braising liquid. Quarter cup of low sodium soy sauce.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can use. I think you can use Worcestershire sauce too if you want to, but it's a preference. He's gonna.
Use the soy sauce. 3/4 of a cup of distilled white vinegar. So basically, a cup between the vinegar and the soy. So 3/4 distilled vinegar, 1/4 soy.
Okay, right on top.
Right there, and the rest H2O to cover.
And now, how much H2O are we talking here?
Just to cover.
Just to cover it.
I would venture to guess this would be probably 2, maybe 3 cups.
Got you. So we're going right over the meat.
Right. All right, that's about 3.5 cups.
Okay. So it's not covering the meat completely, but right up to it.
Right. Well, what we're gonna do is we want to get that meat in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just move the vegetables around.
Perfect. Yep.
All right, that's fine. The only thing sticking out of that water right now is a little piece of fat, which is gonna melt into the braising liquid.
That's why we put it fat up, right?
Yep. Now we're just gonna bring it back to a simmer. We're gonna bring this back to a simmer. Once we get it to a simmer, 300 degrees
Mhm.
in the oven. This, like I said, this pound and a half took about 1:45, an hour, just shy of 2 hours. A 4 to 5 pound roast, I would suggest 3 hours. Check it, and then if it's not tender enough yet, at 20-minute increments, go back and check it.
Sounds good. And you're looking for that fork pull, that pull apart
Oh,
feeling. We're gonna get to it. He's so excited. He wants to get.
Right under there.
Yeah, he wants to get to showing it, and it should just easily strand apart with a fork.
All right.
Very nice.
So that's going to a simmer. Now, we're going to fast forward it. Now we're 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever the braising time, the size of the roast that you used. Remove the meat, remove the big chunks of vegetables,
Oh, yeah.
strain the liquid through a colander. Okay, you might have a couple more pieces of celery. Remove the garlic. You could keep the garlic, take it out of the paper, but you don't need it. All that flavor's in there. So you have the celery, the fennel, and the onions removed.
Mhm.
All right. Now discard the rest of the contents.
Yep.
Keep the liquid. Now you want to take that liquid and go back through a fine mesh sieve to remove anything else.
Right.
So now
So the final product is a very fine.
what you're going to end up with is that.
Okay. So this has been cooked down. This is the sum of the liquids that come out of here.
Right. This liquid was reduced by 3/4. This liquid was probably here.
And so it's a nice flavorful condensed version.
You want to put this on and you want to reduce it by 3/4. So I've already reduced it. I'm just going to bring it back up to heat now. When that comes to a boil, we want to thicken it a little. So what we're going to use is a little cornstarch and cold water.
Cold water's the trick.
You have to have cold water and cornstarch.
And what's that ratio?
The ratio here is 1-to-1.
So one
You
part.
put a tablespoon of cornstarch, you put a tablespoon of water.
Gotcha. And you can just kind of put it in, kind of mix it with your finger to get it going. Finger or your
That's
spoon.
called in the culinary world. That's called a slurry.
So you're creating a slurry right now. And it's not something that you dump directly in, right? It's something that you kind of.
Yeah, right here I had about 2 tablespoons. I don't know that I'll need it all, so I'll introduce it into the liquid a little at a time to see the consistency. It may take it all, it may not.
It's starting to smell very good in here.
All right. Well, while that's coming to temperature, I said we're going to dress the final product with an herb salad. We have some cilantro, some Italian parsley, and some mint leaves. The mint leaves are large. The parsley and the cilantro we're going to leave whole. We're going to leave as is, but the mint leaves. We're going to stack the mint leaves. And what we're going to do is called chiffonade.
So you're going to make a chiffonade.
Right. We're going to stack these mint leaves, roll them tightly like a cigar.
So everybody's learning interesting, cool new ways to chop their veggies. A chiffonade.
And as you bruise it, as you cut through it, you could smell this mint. And it'll come out into ribbons like that. Because I don't think when you take a bite of that herb salad, you want to bite a whole leaf of mint. All right, now what we're going to dress that with. Here we go.
So what's that nifty little tool you've got
This
there?
is a microplane. And I'm a big proponent of using zest. Anytime a recipe calls for lemon juice, I always add the zest. The zest will give you 10 times more lemon flavor than the juice itself.
So that
You
tool
want it-
uses the zest.
Right.
Okay.
You want to be careful. You don't want any of that white pit. You just want the skin. The skin contains the oil of the lemon, which is very strong. As I'm zesting it right now,
Yep.
the lemon flavor it's coming right up in my nose.
Smells delicious.
And a little goes a long way.
So keep rotating the lemon. Be sure not to take off too much in the same spot. And the idea is to just get that lemon zest, these little flakes of lemon zest there for you.
It smells like we actually squeezed the whole lemon, that little bit of zest. We are gonna use some lemon juice also. I don't even think we'll be using the juice of a half a lemon because we just want to slightly dress the herbs.
Just a little hint. Great.
Those of you who have an incinerator, like I do, and start throwing all those onion skins and everything down there, sometimes you get a little odor. Right down with the lemon. Clears that right up.
Absolutely. We'll leave that for later after we put everything else down.
Yeah, because we don't want wifey coming home and the house smelling like onions. Especially if she had a rough day at work.
Gentlemen.
And Seth knows he has to wash all the pots and pans before she gets there too.
I am on dish duty.
Yeah, because the last Zoom I was on dish duty after I cooked. While he was eating the chicken.
Listen, too much behind the scenes. I do get to enjoy the food that you get to make.
There we go. Let's watch that.
All right. So what are we doing now?
Now it came to a boil. So we're gonna
Do a little bit of our cornstarch water
yes,
mix.
you see how thick it became immediately.
And we don't want it to get too thick because then it'll start getting chunky or.
Put a little more.
That's it.
And let it come back to a boil. You want to see it so it coats the back of a spoon like that. See how my finger went through it?
And it starts thickening up the more it boils, right?
Absolutely. Now let's get a little mixing bowl here. Chiffonade, Italian parsley,
We don't need to chop up the parsley because it's already so small, right?
right? Because it is an herb salad.
Yep.
Cilantro, and mind you, if there's any of these flavors that you don't prefer,
Leave them out.
leave them out. You can use whatever flavors you like. Oh, you know one thing I forgot with the braising liquid?
By all means.
A nice bunch of thyme. You want to put a nice bunch of thyme in that braising liquid. There you go. You got to a boil. Now, in real time, shut that off, put that in the oven for the amount of time necessary, depending on your roast.
Sounds good. And that might be, like you said, anywhere between 1.5 hours for our small roasts of a pound, pound and a half.
Just a little bit of lemon juice because we have that zest there.
Smells good.
Smell that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Smell it from here.
There we go. Good there, good there.
And I am starting to smell our veggies and stuff. How long do our veggies typically take in there?
Typically, the mushrooms will take 25 to 30 minutes.
Good. And so,
Like I said, in the last 5-7 minutes, you want to leave them there uncovered. All good there, all good there.
very nice. So,
You're getting off easy today. There was a lot more pots to get.
oh, I know, I'm aware. You know, some people, don't necessarily know the right way to chop. You know, I know we've got a couple of minutes here that are maybe to spare. Do you want to give a little lesson on the right way to chop something?
Yeah, how about a pepper?
All right. And
Because the mistake many people make is by cutting the pepper on the skin side. And then another great trick with peppers. A lot of people complain that peppers repeat on them. Well, once again, like we say in Italian, give you agita. The reason for peppers repeating on you has nothing to do with the pepper itself. It has to do with the veins.
Interesting.
As much of that vein as possible off of that pepper. And again, always cut it on the flesh side, not the skin side.
Interesting.
And
So the veins are what creates some stomach issues for some
right,
people.
that's what
The indigestion.
it's harder to digest.
Interesting.
That's what causes it.
So it's not the seeds. Sometimes it's not the spice necessarily. I mean,
You
those all
want to get the
contribute.
seeds out of there.
Of course.
Especially we're out in the field cooking for seniors who have a multitude of different
Health concerns.
medical concerns or health concerns.
Swallowing issues, different types of swallowing issues we deal with.
Seeds are good.
Yep, absolutely. We have certain clients we cook for with, that have, for instance, dysphagia 3, so we obviously have to make foods that are smaller bites, not sticky. And we accommodate to all of our different clients.
Once you have the pepper in that form, you could julienne.
And what is the best way to chop? Let me show some everybody your technique with the knuckles.
Obviously, these knives we use are very, very sharp. You want the tips of your fingers to be bent back, and you want to use that part of your finger between your knuckles as your guide. And you could walk your fingers back like that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's several different cuts. If you need a fine dice, you could julienne like I did before. Give it a fine dice. See, I'll never hit my fingers because that knife, my fingers are back and that knife is on my finger.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I never hit them, but.
Yep, but we want safety first.
Absolutely. And just whatever your recipe calls for, if you need it chopped,
right?
Typically, that's a fine dice. If you need it chopped, they're probably 1/4 to 1/2 inch pieces. Just cut them larger,
depending on what we're doing. Thank you for the chopping recipe, the chopping demonstration. Not enough people, want to cook because they maybe are scared from, they're scared to cook themselves, and that's understandable. Sometimes little tricks like how to properly dice your own vegetables is sometimes, the thing that makes you feel comfortable enough to jump back in the kitchen. Awesome. So we are. All right. So we are bringing over our prepared brisket. This is one that obviously we have cooked and prepared prior. It took about 2 hours or so to roast it down. You can see on the side, we've got our fennel and our onion, and we've got our celery. And it's now just waiting for our gravy that we put on before. Now we are starting to smell, delicious. Oh yeah.
I can make a nice brisket martini with this.
Dare you. You got some laughs out of that one, but I dare you. I think we all dare you. All right. No. I know right now. We'll see him start drinking. Let's take. Yeah, they're smelling real good. And since
Don't try this at home. My fingers like asbestos. Oh Beauty.
And see, you're going to see some moisture. You see some of that liquid we were talking about earlier that's in the pan.
And you see how the mushroom shrunk?
This is kind of what we're talking about. So that we pull off the top now. We're going to let some of that liquid evaporate over the next 5 minutes or so as we cook them down. And then our veggies will be ready to go along with our brisket.
Gonna give that 5 minutes, it'll dry them up.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
We got a meal here.
Oh, yeah.
And this herb salad, really that braising liquid is very, very rich. That'll cut through that richness nice with a nice fresh bite.
Yeah, a little snap. That sounds great. Oh, it's smelling great in here.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, and it could be about, what we're cooking now. It could be about anything that we've cooked, anything that you want to cook, give you little tips and tricks. Want to tell you, when we do this, a lot of questions that we get, I'll get something like, and I'll ask you, Chef James, what kind of oil? I mean, do you ever sear or cook with extra virgin olive oil? I see a lot of people in extra virgin olive oil and talking
extra
about
virgin olive oil is a finishing oil that should be used on salads in a vinaigrette, or sometimes a little oil over a soup. You'll see a drizzle of oil, or finishing pastas with a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. My preference, I use canola oil when cooking. Canola oil is neutral. So and the other thing about olive oil, if you try cooking with it, has a very low heat and burning point. It'll smoke up the house.
Right. So canola oil for your searing,
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Use vegetable. I prefer canola oil. It's a little healthier than vegetable oil.
Yep. Oh yeah. Good to know.
When do you, Chef James, when do you salt and pepper? Before, during, after, or all the above?
We salted the meat. We salt and peppered it prior to browning it. Now, when it's done with that soy, I tasted this before. I didn't add any additional salt. The soy gave it enough salt, and the salt that I used, both sides of the brisket was liberally salted, kosher salt. It's a fresh black pepper, both sides prior to searing. And when I seared it, remember, sear it fat side down first. Get that brown. That'll melt some of that fat. Then turn it over. When you take it out of the oven, after you strain it, and you're going to reduce the liquid, you could give it a taste there, but give it a taste after it's reduced, because the more reduced that gets, the saltier it's going to get. It's going to get. Don't taste it before you reduce it, and say, "Oh, let me add salt," and then reduce it.
Because then you're going to have you're going to twitch
we put a quarter cup of soy sauce, even though it was low sodium soy sauce.
Yeah, there's some salt.
That's a huge salt component to the dish.
Absolutely. Good.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Look at you.
Yeah, don't try that at home.
Yeah, those look quite delicious.
You see how it dried up? How quick it dried up?
Oh,
All
yeah.
that liquid that was in the pan.
Absorbed right back into our mushrooms.
Now I know there's no dairy. I know there's no dairy in kosher cooking for the holidays and stuff. But for those of you who are not 1000% kosher cooking, that's screaming for some mozzarella or some fontina right on top for 2 minutes right now.
That's good. And so, I mean, we basically, why don't we pull apart a little bit of this? Let's show how it, if we can.
He didn't purposely eat lunch.
Yes, I came here hungry.
Right, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put it right on here.
That sounds good. And we'll cut it up right there.
Sure.
Sounds great.
but we're not wasting this pepper.
No, sir.
In the next 12 to 24 hours, there will be use for that pepper.
Yeah. All right.
Tongues. It's falling apart as I'm picking it up.
Oh, yeah.
See how it's shredding?
Yep. So you're looking for your meat to have bands, nice strands like that. That's going to be, obviously, it's going to pull apart with a fork. Mhm. Adding a little of the gravy.
Nice piece of fennel. Some celery.
Oh, yeah. Let me bring the plate over if you want.
Juice.
I have a question about the brisket. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I have a question. When I make my brisket, usually I slice it and then I put it back in the sauce and I serve it the next day or the day after because it seems to be very, very, I guess, hard. And sitting in the sauce helps it, whatever, it makes it softer. But this particular brisket you made this morning and it looks
Yeah.
soft as butter. So how did you do it that it's just so soft?
It's just that cooking time. You can't rush it. And like I said, low and slow. Low and slow.
That's how,
That
that's how
little
pulled
piece.
pork is made, right? Or, I know.
That was only a pound and a half piece. And like I said,
But
it
it's
went
always-
out,
okay.
hour and 45 to 2 hours at 300, covered with a tight lid.
Right?
That's
You never put that in. I thought you were going to put the pot in the oven. Were you planning on putting the pot in the oven or just sits on the
Yeah, so the pot, so again, we did some of this obviously prior to starting. So that pot eventually will go into the oven for 3 hours. And that's how we ended up with that brisket that's over there already prepared. So,
And
yeah.
how did
right. The only reason why I didn't put it in the oven is I had
Oh.
the oven temperature a little higher. I had it at 350, and I didn't want to put that in at 350 to do the mushrooms and the zucchini boats, which will plate up too.
So typically, if you're going to do it in classic timing, you're going to be starting your brisket in the morning, typically in the early afternoon, because it's going to take many hours. And the oven's going to be prepared and have the temperature for that around 300 for that 3 hours. And then you'll be able to up it to 350 to get your mushrooms done and your zucchini boats.
Okay, thank you.
You got it. That, sir, is a very good looking Passover dish.
Wow.
I'll be
So-
over in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're only a minute
address?
over.
Come in.
Yeah, we're coming to you live in Monmouth County. We're in Howell, New Jersey right now.
Yeah.
Did
And
you say Howell?
Yes, I did.
yep.
Seth,
we're
can
right
we get a photo with you and him together with the
Yeah,
food?
absolutely. Hold on one second. I'm going to set this up over here and I'll come around.
I'll snap it. This looks amazing.
Thank you.
One
The
second.
secret ingredient right here, it's always made with love.
That's right.
Nana wouldn't let me cook it any other way.
There you go.
Amazing.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
Thanks,
For
guys.
those that are
Thank you.
celebrating, happy Passover.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll have many more cooking demos coming up soon. And I attached the shopping list. I put it up on Facebook, so people were asking me what ingredients they needed. So there's a shopping list on Facebook. You can go purchase the ingredients and make yourself a Passover feast. So again, thank you, Chef for Seniors. And we're
Very
coming
welcome.
to you from the Jewish home in Freehold on 537, wishing everybody a happy Passover and happy Easter. Thank you.
Thanks,
Guys,
guys.
be well. Happy
Very
holidays.
Thank you, Sarah.